Good afternoon, and thanks for the people already joining the webinar today. We typically take a few minutes for people to drop in. Sometimes they have some technical challenges, so we give them a minute or so. Maybe it's nice for the people attending. We're gonna discuss a lot. For us, it's always interesting to know a bit, know the background of our audience. So maybe if you can share where you're based at, which country, what are you selling, are you a brand, are you a retailer, just a bit more background. If you can share it in the chat, you can find it on your right hand side. Feel free to drop your name, your company, what you're doing, where you're from. Like I said, if you're a brand or a retailer like Azerty, or you're a retailer with your own brand. I see TikTok is in, so that's quite relevant, I think, for today as well, Emile. So it's good. I see some existing, some known people, customers. So it's always nice to see them joining. Someone selling fitness equipment, Theo. So I think he just had the peak of the season, January. People with a good start of the year. Let me see. I still see some more people dropping in, so we'll take 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can start. I see Europe is represented quite well. See a lot of different countries. Ohio. Great. Yeah, I think most people dropped in, and otherwise we can start with the webinar, and also, of course, it's recorded so people can watch it later on. For the people joining, thanks for taking the time. Today we're going to talk about being profitable everywhere. I think that's the goal, of course, for selling on marketplaces, and we have some nice tips and tricks, but also some experience how you can get it done. For today, my name is Twan. I'll be the host. I work at ChannelEngine. I'm mainly on the commercial side, helping customers grow, but also partners, prospects. So more on, let's say, the business side to see how we can help them grow. Sometimes that's technical, sometimes just common sense, getting things set up, introduction, and so on. So that's basically my role to help them grow. Jorrit from Azerty, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Jorrit from Azerty. I work for Azerty for a few years now as a marketplace specialist, and we are working with ChannelEngine for a few years now. And today we are talking about how we implement ChannelEngine with the pricing V2 tool, how to be more profitable than we were. Also about the company. When you see the the slides, so I work with Azerty. Azerty is a leading a retailer for IT hardware. So we sell computers, we sell computer components like motherboards, etc. We do this for over 20 years now, for B2B and B2C sellers. And also interesting for us is that we also have our own brand, which is Xenit, which is pre-built gaming PCs for high-end gaming, that we also try to sell on marketplaces as well as a brand owner.
Yeah, great, thanks. And then Emile, maybe also good for you to introduce yourself, and maybe also take the slides from Tennis Crew as well.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Twan. So I'm Emile. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at the 10x Crew. Been working in e-commerce and the digital space for the past 20 years. Last 7 years at the 10x Crew, and before that, also 10 years at bol.com, the leading marketplace of the Netherlands, of course. Just a quick introduction of 10x Crew, who we are. Besides the fact that we are a platinum partner of ChannelEngine and been working for a long time with them for the past, I think also like 7 or 8 years even. We are a D2C performance agency and help a lot of brands to grow across social marketplaces and web shop. Basically, what we say is we have brands on the one hand, consumers on the other hand. Where do those consumers search? Where do those consumers buy products? And we help them to create maximal visibility on those channels, to win in every channel, but especially to look into also attribution over those different channels. And we're also going to touch upon that, of course, later in this session, with the whole social commerce and especially the TikTok part. And what we do there is we give full 360 support. So not only the strategy part, but also the operational things that needs to be done from a technical perspective, the back end, feed management, but especially also the performance part, helping to create maximum organic and paid visibility. And we recently also launched our TikTok for Brands service, part of our social commerce proposition, to also help a lot of brands in preparations to the launch of TikTok Shop in the Netherlands. Where we also do a lot of different things from a support perspective. So yeah, that's a little bit more about 10x Crew and myself. I think back to your slides, right, Twan?
Yes, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, briefly on ChannelEngine, we are connected to over 1,300 marketplace and third-party sales channels. Of course, we'll discuss that a bit. Where we started with the regular 3P channels. We have social commerce, the AI commerce coming. So, in essence, like you mentioned, Emile, where customer wants to shop or view products or buy products. We want to get the products from our merchants there. Founded 2013 in Leiden, over 200 people. We have about 6 offices around the world. The majority is based here in Leiden, in the Netherlands. We help especially the larger brands also to have a global presence. The global presence where we talk about, it's a big slide. There are a lot of channels, like I said, the 1,300. I think what really resonates as well is that we see the increase in amount of channels, right? So a lot of retailers start a marketplace, allowing other brands, retailers to sell on their platform. And I think there lies a really opportunity. You have a bit more spread amongst channels than only the big Amazon or Bol or other local heroes. But then, of course, there's more complexity to it as well. You have to synchronize more channels. Every channel has their own, let's say, specifics. And that's basically where our platform comes in. And our knowledge as well, of course, out of these 1,300 channels, which one to choose. So that's where we help. And this slide we have to keep on updated. So every new presentation we give, I think we're going to add 1 or 2 channels as well. So it's maintained heavily. Like I said, for today, with all these marketplaces being around with different commission models, challenges, and so on, how can you make sure to protect your margins, or actually how to make sure everything stays profitable, or at least you don't get orders in that are less profitable than your key channels, for instance. We see a big shift towards social commerce with TikTok shops, especially now happening in the Benelux market this summer, already around, of course, in other European countries and US for a while. we see this brings a real new dynamic to the table, right? And that's why Emile will discuss a bit more on what's happening there, how you can look at this from a brand perspective to already be aware. We get a lot of questions as ChannelEngine as well on this, let's say new wave of TikTok Shop. So good to deep dive on that. And then, of course, what's happening with the AI? We have a quick peek on that. And then with everything happening, what does it really mean for you as a seller to manage this, and where are the opportunities and also, of course, the challenges, and how can we help? Like we said, in the multi-channel reality, what we typically see is that a customer goes to multiple, let's say, touch points to navigate and search for a product. So 37% of shoppers still starts on marketplaces, and that's far ahead of, for instance, search engines like Google Shopping or direct to the branded sites. And we do see that it's spreading, right? So social commerce is more on the discovery and growing into a purchasing channel. But that's also really a nice addition to see that, for instance, on a social commerce, you can, let's say, tempt a customer for a new product where there was not a real direct desire. And the more traditional marketplace, people already have a certain buying intent or a product desire. So it brings an additional GMV in. And we see also over half of the shoppers use AI tools to research products. So once again, within the AI, we see a lot of research, comparison, these things, but not yet completing their purchases. But we do see the effect, so getting references from the AI bots agents towards traditional shopping platforms. And that's also what you see in the flow. Of course, it doesn't work to be in one place or into a limited amount of channels. Customers go quite broad, right? So on average, over 3 channels. But also a challenge lies here, of course, price alignment. Because if you have different pricing on different channels, in essence, that's still possible, but it should be in line, right? It should make sense. Otherwise, the customer is distracted. And also your content, it has to be in line. For instance, if you ask your OpenAI, okay, about a certain product, and different sources tell different information, then it's less reliable. This will affect the rankings or cause diffusion, leading to less conversation. So in the end, all these touch points where you have to be, everything has to be in sync. And that's a challenge we're going to discuss today. So like what you see, we also see a certain complexity. Because the scaling is easier, there's more to go to, but how you're going to do it and how to be profitable. Like I mentioned, the pricing can be different for each channel, costs are different. So you have to be there and make sure to get channel specific. One big thing, of course, is profitability within the marketplaces. And we had from ChannelEngine side multiple webinars on this. And what we typically see is that, okay, how does the P&L, the dynamics of a marketplace work? How I can implement this? So there were multiple webinars on the theory, let's say. Today, Jorrit from Azerty is joining us to really have, let's say, hands-on approaches. What were the challenges? How they tackled this, and what we can learn from that. And I think it's also especially quite good to realize, like Jorrit said in his introduction, Azerty is a retailer where they sell third-party brands, but they also have their own brands in a different approach. But let's say their market is tough, so everything they experience, I think, is quite relevant for even, let's say, lagging industries where it's not that competitive yet. You really have to be on edge, of course, in electronics, because it's really comparable. So we'll showcase that. Before we start there, I have a quick poll. We want to know a bit from the audience in the webinar. How would you describe your marketplace strategy? Is it mainly optimizing your profit? Do you want to create a certain volume, market share, a revenue optimization, and less on the profitability? Is it international expansion? So for you to touch on new markets or get a certain reach where you're not yet. Brand awareness, then you just want to, let's say, be visible and you care less about the sales, just people to get in touch. Or if you have a different strategy that's not listed on these top 4 or in general 4, feel free to share it in the chat. And if I look at the numbers, it's quite mixed, quite evenly about every brand awareness, profit. Yeah, it's quite evenly. So it's good to know. I think for the profitability side, Jorrit and I will share a bit more on the brand awareness. Emile can share a bit more. So we will go into that directly. One general thing is that we see, of course, before you start selling on a marketplace, you should have your strategy in place, right? And we see there are multiple, but the key three ones are visibility, where you just want to make sure your products are seen, that the products are presented in, let's say, the same identical way, or at least correct way from all the platforms. So then you really work on brand presence. You were less on the ROI, or as a brand who takes a GMV. That can very well be a reseller, but just make sure your brand is there. People can buy it, people can see it. That's the first one. Second one is profit. Where you're optimizing your profit. So basically on order level or product level, you will see, okay, how much can I spend on advertising, for instance, for it to still be profitable, but you don't have to grow if it's not healthy, right? So you really want to optimize your profit. And the third one is that, especially what you would see, you have to optimize your volume, and then profit will come in later, or cost price will drop. Like, for instance, if you have a warehouse and you double the amount of orders, the price per order will drop, right? Or if you buy at a factory, or purchase from your suppliers, if you do a higher volume, then the profit will come because of cost effectiveness. We typically see customers say, okay, first year to a certain level I invest, but then second year I have to be at a certain level where I'll be profitable. And then it's also good to know this in your pricing and your strategy. Jorrit, maybe give to you, maybe you can share a bit on where you were. I think this was a bit over around a year ago, where we made the turnaround for Azerty and Marketplace. Maybe you can share a bit on the position of Azerty, and then we can go through the challenges you had and how you solved them.
Yes, of course. So I think in 2014, we already had our marketplaces in place. But what we really were struggling with was the data that we had on the marketplaces and the profitability. So in 2024, we tried to create our P&L based on income and cost on marketplace level, based on the marketplaces we sell. And basically, in the end, we saw that the margins that we had over, so the profit that was left, was not good enough based on our standards. So we need to step up our game. And basically, that is the point that we also talked to ChannelEngine about our profitability, and we want to explore more on what you can do. And luckily for us, ChannelEngine was working on the pricing fee too, and we stepped in and we saw an increase immediately. So basically, what we did is, we had problems with default pricing. So first, we had all the pricing set to our Azerty.nl pricing, so our own website pricing, and we were not able to make separate pricing based on marketplaces. We did something with commission. So basically, the rule that we had was the price on our website, including commission, and that's it. And basically, what we try to do with the new pricing strategy is that we want to calculate it based on our purchase price, and then calculate the minimum price on every separate marketplaces based on purchase price, commission, on shipping cost we had to each country, because we are only shipping from the Netherlands to all the countries we are shipping to, because we have our own warehousing, to see what the bottom line will be for our products, basically. And that was also that was really important for us. Then we also set a base price on it as well. which is basically the website price. So when we are the only one selling the products, which is rarely the thing because we are a retailer, then we always calculate the price based on our website price. But I think in another slide, I will elaborate more on the pricing.
Yeah, and the pricing strategy. And I think also
Yeah.
what you mentioned, like we see a lot of sellers starting with, let's say, the same price as your web shop, but there's
Yeah.
a really different dynamic to it. And so a lot of sellers start with the same price as the web shop. Then some say, okay, I'll add, let's say, 10 or 15% to cover the commission fee.
Exactly.
But what you see happening then is that, for instance, if the price is already too expensive on your web shop, you're not selling it. You make it 10% more expensive. You're not selling it on the marketplace. But if you're selling it too cheap or at maybe a small margin on your web shop, and you take that price, and even if you add 10%, then it's still too small, right? So you're giving the wrong
Yep.
incentives to the product, and the different price levels leading to selling only cheap products, or let's say too cheap product and not expensive ones. So I think that really makes sense. Start with your P&L and take all the components out and say, okay, when is the order profitable for us? Yes or no? We will deep dive a bit, of course, in that. And also, like you said, for each channel. So, for instance, if you pay commission can vary amongst channels. If you, for instance, pay 2% more commission on one channel, you should at least put that in your minimum price to be aware. And also, like you mentioned, all these cost components. We saw, of course, a high return cost. So also we needed to check, okay, why are these products returned? Can we improve the content so it's not let's say, a surprise?
Yep.
Measurements or capabilities, or if a certain product is more, let's say, returned more often because it's more the character of a product that is returned more often. Like, for instance, with fashion, we can mark it up or exclude it from selling overall together. But like you mentioned, it starts with the right insight and the right reporting. And the same goes, of course, with the logistical cost, that you can really make sure to take the actual cost once again. So not if
Yeah.
I think in your case is typically general packaging with one rate per country. But if you sell small items and big items, then you should make sure that's priced in your minimum price as well. And then also, I think what was quite strong, you had a certain margin that you want to make, but depending on the brand, you're also playing along a bit with that. Like, you have an average margin that you want to have across the board, but certain brands are not allowing
Yeah.
specific brands, or if you have kickbacks or things like that. Then also, once again, on a brand level, iterate and change and see what's happening.
Yeah. So what we are working on. So for the reporting, we saw also on the brand level that it was really hard for some brands to be profitable. Also with the lost in mail and the fraud that we had on some brands, some A brands, it was not profitable for us to sell them on marketplaces because, as we know, marketplaces sometimes are way too easy to hand money to the customer instead of the seller. So yeah, we deleted some brands from marketplaces because they were not profitable for us.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you started with the minimum price logic. Maybe you can share what changes you made.
Yeah, so we made a lot of changes. So we built a structure based on the minimum pricing, based on the purchased price. So basically, we gave them and benchmark on how low a prices could be, and mainly our strategy as a retailer is always to try to get the buy box, because when you have the buy box, you will sell the products. Otherwise, you don't sell the products. And then we created a layer of data-driven cost dynamics, which is basically the price to send the goods to a country. And what you already mentioned, we sell small products like mouses, but also big monitors from 49 inch, which is quite big, and we need to consider extra transport cost in there as well. And of course, the last component which we add is also a little bit of handling cost and warehouse fees. And it depends on the use case you have. So we build it in our margin rule basically, but you in the pricing fee too, you can build up with adding dynamic costs by a feed, or just manually add up 5 or 10 euros to cover those costs. Then we digged into it deeper. So we want to have margins depend on which product category they are in. So for example, accessories, we want to have higher margins than on a laptop, which have really low margins. Always taking in account that we want to have a certain level of margin. So accessories will add up more on the margin, and some other products will decrease the margin a little bit, and basically they all set on a general margin fee. So that's basically what we do as the standard pricing. And then we also had some smart things that ChannelEngine builds, which is the maximum bound price, which is a really interesting feature. For example, when I take Bol, you can set the max bound price on a certain price star, which is basically a pricing that Bol thinks is good or not good enough to even show your products. Basically what it does is when you set it on 2 stars, it always will try to have an offer live on Bol. And for Amazon, they have the same for
Yeah,
what
that's
is
a
it called?
competitive price
It's the
threshold. So if the
competitive
price
price
goes
results.
above that
Yeah,
price, they will not publish it. So then, of course, don't want to push above that, so we can check if the minimum price okay.
yeah.
Lower that to keep your offer live. Yeah.
And that one is also always interesting to set up. It's really easy. ChannelEngine is fetching the data for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. And they will calculate the pricing based on that. So that's really interesting. And the last thing that we are doing is using basically price exclusion rules, which is the last thing of setups that you can do in ChannelEngine. And basically what you can do is base your pricing calculation on certain competitors. So basically what we see is that some brands are going really low on the marketplaces, or we have um, some rules with them that we don't want to undersell them with the pricing, or don't even want to sell them when they have some offers live. And that is also a really interesting feature to use uh, as a brand owner, to sell only stock on marketplaces when the marketplace doesn't have their own stock, which is
Yeah,
also
we
your stock.
typically also
No
see that with
backfill.
brands, for instance, that work with Amazon vendor, and then you, for instance, says, okay, if
Yeah,
Amazon vendor is offering it, I'm not going to compete with them, or if there's indeed a certain competitor, and we mark it down here as, of course, the offensive pricing based on the price data we can get back. You can automatically set up a strategy to win the buy box, but also you can interfere, having different logic on different competitors or
yeah,
situations. And also, of course, what you did is that, for instance, if you sell on some channels that don't give back competition, or if there's no competition, you can copy the price. So, for instance, in the Netherlands, Bol is a quite benchmark marketplace. So you can copy the price from Bol to other, let's say, more niche marketplace, maybe at €1, but at least be on par to avoid
yeah.
the big differences. So I think we did a lot of configuration. The reprice or the minimum price were the core things. And I think maybe you can share some results. What happened after all these changes?
Yeah. So what happens? So the revenue decreased a lot. But yeah, we knew that this would happen because we need to to step up our game, but it increases our bottom margin with all the cost included, the net margin. It increased by a few percent, which is pretty high for computer components. We are pretty happy with 5 to 10% of margin. So when it increases a few percent, it's quite high. And also the average order value increases by 15%. So that was really great. And basically now we are trying to get back the revenue that we lost by the margin. We try to get back at this moment, and it's a hard market at the moment, but we are.
Yeah, and I think what you
doing
effectively
okay.
did, and I think that's that, especially for a retailer purpose, that you say, okay, there's a certain part of our GMV that's not profitable. We're not going to
Yeah.
sell that anymore. Either you're excluding it, or you make it more expensive that effectively you don't sell it. So you lost, let's say, the bleeding part of your revenue. And then, of course, now you know your revenue is healthy, and then there's also more room to either increase to new channels, because you know each order that comes in brings in money. You also did some advertising performance. So if a certain product has a high margin, you can spend also a bit more on advertising to, let's say, keep the flywheel going. So I think that really brings to a success story that you made. I want to share one thing. We, of course, discussed the pricing. I will not go too much in detail. I think key takeaways, there are a lot of, let's say, nominal fixed cost per order. Doesn't matter if it's a small or a cheap or expensive item, the nominal costs include that. And of course, the variable cost mainly being the commission. And also there again, make sure you calculate the right commissions. Bol, for instance, gives that with the API. So for each EN code, we get actual commission, and we can calculate with that. To make sure that you don't use 1% across the board. That's also what you see here, is that in brief, if you are working on 3P, you have a bigger margin, but you also have a bigger seller expensive, being the commission and logistical costs, which are more costly D2C. If you would work on 1P with vendor, you have less margin, but also your selling expenses are less. And that reflects as a brand, of course, how you would do in wholesale retail, where you see your revenue is less. Your margin, your gross margin is also less, but your selling expensive in bulk shipment, for instance, are also lower. So this takes a bit how these cost components reflect. And that's also, we have the typical P&L here on the right-hand side with all these components, just to be aware. I think what we saw with Azerty, we started with the P&L, then we knew all the components, we put it in the pricing, and then there's an alignment of your pricing with your P&L. So that's the base. I think some things to explain. So if you have a return, of course, nobody likes return, but if that happened in your P&L, that will just be a credit of GMV. Your commission, most marketplaces also credit that in full, but of course your cost of goods sold, not everything can go back on the shelf, right? So then it's not 100%. You also have a defective or let's say damaged part, and return shipments are additional costs. So you have to make up with other orders. And also with Azerty specific, we saw a lot of lost in mail claims, items missed during shipping. You have to price it in as well. And then if you look at your P&L, you see with third-party brands, margins are less, but you also don't have to spend money in advertising because they are known brands. But for your own brand, for instance, or more exclusive brands, you can spend more on advertising because there's more margin. So also within your product base, you can have differences there. So I think that's a bit how that comes down to the profit. Thanks for sharing that, Jorrit. And for the social commerce strategy, I'll hand it over to you, Emile, for the TikTok shops. I think audience is eager to know what's happening over there.
Yeah, thanks, Twan. I think first we'll go to a small poll to see what is the current experience of the people in the webinar selling through social commerce channels. So looking forward to what kind of is the maturity there. See, it's not selling yet, but considering it.
Yeah, actively selling and seeing strong results. Let's say the majority is not there yet. I also wouldn't expect that with all the market dynamics yet, but so I think that's also it brings relevance that a lot of people are considering it and looking what's possible. or already started selling and want to optimize. So I think that's also a good moment to learn a bit what's happening there. So
yeah, I see one is the other. So can the other share in the chat what the experience is, or looking forward to some other opinions maybe. But I see that most of the people are not selling, but considering it. I think that from a European perspective, that is something that we also see in the market. And I think to make a little bit of a bridge towards the opportunity of social commerce, I think there's a lot of things going on in the market, of course. And if we take a look at the social commerce opportunity, there's a variety of numbers going around, if it's 6 trillion or 8 trillion, but I think currently it sits a little bit below the 5% of total e-commerce. But the idea and the potential is that it will grow out towards somewhere between 15 and 25% of total e-commerce sales. So it will be an interesting channel to take into account. And indeed, if you're not selling, you should consider it and start doing some things. Especially if we take a look at the opportunity that TikTok offers, because when we're talking about social commerce, it's the same as we're talking about marketplaces as Amazon, because TikTok is leading there, not only from a reach perspective, which you see here, but also if you take a look at the whole infrastructure of creators and other opportunities that are there. So that's very interesting. And I think what is also pretty interesting is what Twan mentioned a little bit in the beginning. It also creates a certain demand. And so if you take a look at TikTok, it really influences purchase decisions. So while you go to a marketplace where you know you want to have a certain product, people are scrolling on TikTok. Time spent on TikTok is massive, and they really are exploring and discovering products and brands, and also are willing to purchase those products. Not all the time on TikTok itself, but even in retail and on and offline markets. So that's pretty interesting, especially if you take a look at the different things that went viral on TikTok. And the very famous TikTok made me buy it. A lot of people that buy a lot of products and get inspired by trends that are going around on TikTok. Like I said, it drives commerce everywhere through the whole market, and that is especially interesting. Especially also interesting if you take a look at TikTok, and we've seen that from first hand happening on Amazon. Branded search went up crazy globally. So our client Stanley went viral on TikTok, other social media as well, of course. And in all Amazon countries where we took a look at the search frequency rank, the Stanley Cup was in a top position. And if we take a look at what was happening in the Dutch market, of course, there Bol is a local hero. And if you take a look there, what happens to the branded search of Stanley? If you take a look at it from a water bottle perspective, then Dopper was leading the category on Bol. But due to the enormous hype and trend that was happening, you see that the branded search on Stanley overtook Dopper. So the trend starts on TikTok, but it's the ripple effect towards other channels, especially transactional channels like marketplaces, but also your own web shop is huge. And that's kind of like the what we call the halo effect. And the halo effect is that ripple effect where TikTok really drives the demand and the purchase takes place. As you can see here, for different brands, Amazon is taken into the equation, but also Shopify as your own store. You can't can manage that with a siloed strategy. You really need to approach this with a holistic view, especially because if you take a look at TikTok, they're really building out a smart ecosystem. There already are a lot of consumers there, a lot of active users monthly, as I showed you a couple of slides ago. There are a lot of creators. And if you take a look at the creators, they are the affiliates of this new era. Where in the era of pre-social, so to say, in Google, you had a website that was talking about, let's keep it water bottles. So it was Twan's water bottle that was an affiliate. And I was like, I'm selling water bottles. And Twan's water bottle website is having a lot of traffic for me. So I want him as an affiliate to link to my water bottles. And that is basically what is happening now with the creators, but then on such a massive scale that the potential is endless for brands and retailers to join the whole ecosystem. So like I said, it's especially important to develop what we call a 360 holistic strategy, because like I said, it really drives demand on other channels, and that ripple effect, you need to take that into the equation. What you can see if you take a look at the effect of the things that you do on TikTok and of course other social channels. If you need to see and look if your branded search is going up, is your traffic going up, you can also see that and measure that effects. You can also see if on your web shop you get a lot of new customers. So there are a lot of things that you can measure, not only from kind of like a short-term perspective. It's looking at, okay, I'm doing this, the reach is going up, but it's not leading to revenue, because revenue is, in the end, it will lead to revenue, but you also need long-term commitment, because it's not a thing that you build overnight. It's basically the same as you would be a brand selling on Amazon. If you have a product, let's say in the water bottle category, you sell water bottles and you put a water bottle on Amazon in Germany, then you are a water bottle number, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 or something like that. So what do you do on Amazon? You optimize your content organically, and you try to generate some user-generated content, reviews in this case, because you want to show the algorithm that it knows which client or which consumers to target. So you start with the organic optimization. After, of course, you have set up your accounts and stuff like that. So that is something that is similar to TikTok and other social commerce channels. You really need to take the creating organic, relevant, and authentic content into account. One of the other things that's really interesting and which struck us in why we really think that TikTok is a nice platform on all sides is, well, as a new seller on Amazon, if you create your seller account, then Amazon doesn't reward you or push you or create a sense of urgency to start selling products. While on TikTok, if you create your account, you immediately get some kind of challenges. If you set up your live account, for instance, then you need to do 2 live sessions within 2 weeks. And there are all these rewards if you do lives, promotions, etc., etc. So the platform on the back end is really kind of like optimized towards sellers, as the front end is optimized towards maximizing output from a consumer perspective. So that is a really big difference in kind of like motivating and getting the most out of not only the demand side, but also the supply side of the platform. So that is a big thing that doesn't need to be underestimated. I think if you take a look at kind of like the first phase, then I already told you that creating organic content is important. That is kind of like your bread and butter. On top of, should be starting to sampling products towards creators. And that is like seeding a lot of products to relevant creators on a monthly base. And that's also not like, okay, I send out 10 samples in 1 month and then I hope that that was it. No, it's really about structurally sending out a lot of samples to ideally some micro influencers, seeing what works, communicating with those influencers and creators, and also looking into scaling the relationship with those creators, because they will create content for you. They will do unboxing and all these kinds of things, creating videos for you. And if you take a look at, okay, what videos are really doing well, you can boost that content of those creators with your GMV max. So that is also interesting. You can create your own organic content. You can drive paid advertising on your own content, but you can also push out samples and start collaborating with creators and also boost their content. And that is, of course, something that creators like as well, because in the end, if you boost their content, they will be more visible, they will get more following. And then, of course, the whole flywheel of the platform works well. And if you take a look at that, then it's like building out your house. And in the end, you want to scale the commerce part. And that's, of course, where the shop and the live comes in, to introduce live streams and CRM to really drive the whole flywheel and build a sustainable fan base in that case. And that is not something that is done in a month's time or in 3 months' time. It's really about 6 months to 9 months, building that out and working on it consistently and with the right knowledge and resources in place. And it doesn't come for free. So that is a first. There is an investment needed. There's a big investment needed. If you take a look at all the foundations that you need to do about organic posts, setting up shop, including your products, setting up a feed, possibly through ChannelEngine. If you have your organic post, then also make that post shoppable, set up and manage live. That's a lot of work, and there's a lot of partnerships that doesn't come for free. Then on top of that, you have, of course, platform fees that will differ per category, and logistic cost. That's kind of like similar. Maybe the seller fees are a little bit lower than you see typically on Amazon. Or Amazon is typically around 15%. The TikTok is most of the time much lower, maybe somewhere between 5 and 10%. And then, of course, the creators, which is kind of like your accelerator to boost the algorithm and also get more views in. It's about seeding, samples, paying affiliate commission and stuff like that. And of course, on top of that comes the advertising. So you really need a good P&L and also a good outlook towards like, okay, if we would do 25K in 1 month, it will probably cost you some money. If you will reach around 50K, then it becomes more profitable. But if you take a look at the 25K from a siloed perspective, then that's not the way to go. If you need to look at it from the holistic point of view, so if you take a look at the right side, the return on investment, there is a direct revenue impact. And so the 25K per month, you could still be thinking like, yeah, I'm losing money here. But on the other hand, if you see that your Amazon sales is ramping up and you get more web shop traffic through TikTok, then you need to add that to your business case. And something that you can also add to your business case is the media value. If you take a look at the collaboration with creators, seeding samples, and if that generates 100,000 views for you with a CPM of €5, then that's a media value of 20K. You need to pay 20K on other online platforms to create the same reach. So that is why, one of our most important tips, and why we always talk, when we talk to our clients, not only through the e-commerce people, the sales people that are responsible for most of the time also the social commerce part, but we also add the marketing and the people that are responsible for the brand to the table, because it needs to be a combined P&L, a combined investment, and then only then it works.
Yeah, and also to bring, like you said, the typical 3PL marketplaces, typically with the e-commerce department, this is more also branding, advertising, so a broader company scope. So also knowing a lot of people are starting, let's say, with TikTok in the near future, this is also to be aware of, right? You just don't start it. Make sure there's a budget, there's an approach, that you know how you're going to measure impact. Also looking at the time for some room for questions, I think for the TikTok, it's good to know there's an event happening beginning of June. I think in June things are about to happen, so that's a great timing. So, but for the audience, good to know that you can scan this, you can look at to attend this event if you want to know more on the TikTok shops, what's happening there. As you can see, some partners here, of course, 10x, TikTok itself, and we'll also be joining. In brief,
one thing about that, Twan, I think it's very cool, especially for the Dutch people in the audience here. We have the two biggest platforms. We have TikTok speaking on the event, and we have Bol themselves also speaking on the event about their creator for brands proposition. So this will be a nice afternoon filled with a lot of knowledge about the whole social commerce stuff. So
yeah, and also you got Stanley there, so some nice takes. Hopefully you can share.
Yeah.
So that's good. AI, like I mentioned in the beginning, I go into this briefly. We see AI is taking a bigger position in let's say the journey of the customers. Also, maybe we have a deep dive on this in April with the webinar 21st. So I would also advise the audience to check this out if you want to know a bit more in depth what's happening there. It's too short to do this now. And I also I want to wrap it up. Have some time for the Q&A. So I think from the first part, like Jorrit shared, make sure to have everything in place, have all your pricing set up, control your margin, cut out unprofitable SKUs. Social commerce, I think main takeaways, what Emile shared, there's a big reach. You see really a halo effect instead of the silent effect. And with TikTok launching in the Benelux quite soon, I think the first mover advantage is also big. So at least be aware and take this approach and have the internal talks to be prepared. And then again, it's an investment for the long-term commitment of your brand. And with that said, with everything changing, more channels, different challenges, like Emile said with TikTok, it's a different game. I think the aspects are still the same, like the old affiliate part, but then still you need synchronization of product information, of orders, all these types of logistics, fulfillment. Yeah, then of course make sure you have a scalable model that if it comes a hit, then you have the organization and the capabilities to scale. So I think these are the key takeaways. We also, of course, share the recording afterwards and the slides. I think we have a few more minutes left for some questions, or maybe before we go to the question, you can type them in the chat. Jorrit, something I missed in the wrap up, or something you want to share to the audience before we go to the questions? I cannot hear you, Jorrit. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that you're quite on point, but I think something to add is just start somewhere. Just start with the purchase price and the commission, and then add up some money for the rest of the cost you think you make. Try to make some estimations, and then when you are growing, try to make it more specific, but just start somewhere.
Yeah, make it sound okay. Emile, anything to add for the wrap up?
No, I think that's the same case for the social part. It's really about start small. It's better to start small than don't start at all, and learn and scale as you go, and add complexity to that as well after you've reached some success. Yeah.
I do see one question in the chat, was already a bit earlier. I would systematically execute the geo over a company official website, social media, and so on. So I think that applies to the generative engine optimization. So how would you, let's say, make sure your data is picked up properly by all the AI systems? I think that will be in the next webinar as well. I can share from my experience that each platform, let's say, has its own way of how they want to have the content. So make sure it's there, but make sure it's correct and it's not conflicting. Then AI can find it, and the models can find on different sources with the same data that works, right? On multiple places, and consistency, I think that's the key. Of course, you will always adjust your title and your description to the platform where you want to sell to the audience on that platform. But overall, like simple attributes, color, sizes, things like that, they should align to make sure it's really, let's say, trustworthy, and will include your ranking. Also, looking at the time, we're almost at an hour, so I think we'll wrap it up for now. You can see, of course, some codes here to sign up for the TikTok brands event, and also for the AI. I see one question coming in for TikTok. Maybe you can see it, Emile, to find out that you are in based on one European country, and you want to set up in a different country. I think at the moment, for each TikTok country, you have to have a local entity. Do you know if that still will be the case with new European country opening up, or can you have, let's say, from one European entity go into multiple European TikTok shops accounts?
We are in talks with the TikTok team in the Netherlands, where we are onboarding now a couple of Dutch brands, where they only need to be registered in the Netherlands, and then can scale to other countries without a local representative.
So then probably, but I'm guessing a bit that, like, if you are registered in one European mainland TikTok country, you can expand to other ones. And previously, as a Dutch company, as TikTok is only was not live in Netherlands, only in Germany, that was the barrier. So okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Well, Emile, Jorrit, thanks for sharing the information and the insights. I'll wrap it up for now. And thanks for the attention from everybody viewing.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.